Hello, and welcome to our experimental FLAMEWOOD Ignite Chieftain build guide. The FLAMEWOOD support is a new build-defining gem that can support any totem skill. When the totem is struck by an enemy, it retaliates with a fiery projectile that deals fire damage based on the totem's maximum life. This effect has a 1-second cooldown, so Ignite seems to be the best option to build around. For regular totems, it can hardly compete with common Ignite builds. However, there is one exception. The Vol Ancestral Warchief has an absurdly high maximum life modifier. One instance of Ignite coming from this Vol totem will melt most bosses, and it is probably the most potent source of Ignite in the game currently. The biggest problem of FLAMEWOOD is the clear speed and general reliability. You will have to wait for enemies to attack the totem, and sometimes they fail to do so despite being taunted. The damage that comes from the Vol Ancestral Warchief can easily justify it, but the regular version, not so much. For that reason, we recommend supplementing the totems with a second setup and keeping FLAMEWOOD mostly for tougher rares and bosses. You could use a Timeless Jewel with the Traitor Keystone and a Soul Ripper Flask to generate Vol souls without kills, but we find it unnecessary during regular mapping. If you dislike the playstyle of FLAMEWOOD totems but enjoy very tanky Ignite builds, you can very easily use this character as a template for any other fire spell with just a couple of changes to the passive tree. The Vol Ancestral Warchief totem has 6 times more maximum life than the regular version, so the damage disproportion is quite noticeable. The Defiled Forces notable refreshes the Ignite on enemies every time you apply a curse, so you can kill most enemies with just one use of the totem. You can easily raise your resistance to 90%, and take a lot of physical damage as elemental. You will also have very high life regeneration from the Fire Mastery, as you stack tons of fire resistance. Summoning your totems will taunt enemies, so they rarely target you anyway. It is a slow but very steady build. Having more enemies on your maps makes it more likely to trigger the FLAMEWOOD projectile. The regular totems deal decent damage, but the true potential lies within the Vol version, which can annihilate most non-Uber bosses. It is a very cheap build to comfortably clear Tier 16 maps, which can easily justify the clumsiness of this setup. There are a few excellent unique items for this build, and most of them are really cheap. You should look for good corrupted implicits on them, since the price difference will be rather small. Thanks to the CHIEFTAIN Ascendancy, this shield effectively grants you 5% to all maximum resistances and lots of life regeneration. Try to get one with corrupted implicit that redirects a portion of the physical damage to be taken as elemental. It doesn't matter which element you pick, as they will be all equal. The lightning coil greatly reduces the physical damage you take, but you will have to get a bit more lightning resistance on your gear. Try to get one with corrupted implicit that increases the level of socketed area of effect gems. You can link and color the sockets cheaply using tainted currency afterward. Provides a very strong increase to the duration of Ignite applied by your Vol Ancestral Warchief, but grants less physical damage mitigation than the lightning coil. It also lacks armor, so you will have to find another way to get +1 to maximum resistance, which you would lose from the armor mastery. Those boots increase the totem life and totem placement speed, which both are very valuable modifiers for this build. The damage reflect is useful, but not very impactful. You can corrupt them for +2 levels to socketed aura or area of effect gems and put the level 21 Purity of Fire there to get +1 maximum fire resistance. Replica Dragonfang's Flight Amulet is ideal for this build as it grants you 3 bonus levels for your Ancestral Warchief Totem gem, which is very hard to obtain anywhere else, plenty of life and mana reservation, and lowers the attribute requirements. You should anoint it with the Searing Heat, notable to increase your damage, or the Charisma if you lack mana reservation efficiency. By socketing the Polaric Devastation Ring on your left ring slot, you can cover enemies in ash, which will increase the fire damage they take without interacting with their elemental resistances, which you set to a fixed value with your Ascendancy. It also grants a bit of resistances and makes your Ignite last longer. With the correct Malevolence Aura modifier, the Watcher's Eye Jewel can grant you an absurd amount of damage, but it will also cost a lot. The cheaper variant will cost much less, and it is still better than regular rare jewel. The defensive modifiers for determination or vitality are also worth looking for. The Brutal Restrained Jewel is an optional setup. The Trader Keystone obtainable through this jewel will generate you flask charges if you leave some flask slots empty, and then you can use the Soul Ripper flask to generate Vol Souls for your ancestral totem. For damage, you should look mostly for bonuses to fire, elemental, or burning damage. Damage over time multiplier is also important. The gearing process is much simpler, as you can focus only on fire resistance to cap your cold and lightning resistance. You will also want to get maximum life, some chaos resistances, and attributes, especially dexterity. The weapon is quite simple. You only need damage over time multipliers and fire damage here. Since you don't need any additional gem level modifiers, it will be much cheaper than usual. The hybrid modifier that grants fire damage and a chance to ignite is especially useful. On your rare helmet you can get a lot of life, resistances, and very important physical damage taken as an elemental modifier. You can also get some mana reservation efficiency through essence modifier. An enchant for one of your auras mana reservation efficiency allows you to easily fit in more auras too. On the gloves it is very important to get correct Eldritch implicits, which will give you ignite proliferation. They should also provide you with maximum life, resistance, and attributes. If you want to use a secondary setup, you can use Essence of Delirium to get 30% more damage over time for socketed gems. The belt slot is also quite simple. You should look for maximum life and resistance. It can also boost your attributes or increase your life by up to 10%. The Stygian Vice is the best base as it allows for one additional Abyss Jewel. On your rare ring you can get plenty of damage through damage over time multiplier, increase to fire or elemental damage, and minimum frenzy charge. On top of that it should provide you with maximum life and resistance. It is a great slot to gain a lot of chaos resistance too. The rare jewels can be very flexible. They can improve your maximum life and resistances, but they can also grant you tons of damage over time multiplier or increase your burning damage. Increasing the totem life is also a great way to improve the Flamewood base damage. The additional Abyss Jewel you gain from the socket in your belt can grant you extra maximum life, resistance, attributes, or raise your damage a bit. It can also grant you Corrupted Blood immunity through the special Corrupted Implicit, or improve your mana reservation efficiency. Taste of Hate is a very useful defensive flask that converts a portion of the physical damage you take into elemental damage, and further reduces the cold damage you take on top of the 90% resistances you should have. The Bottled Faith creates a large consecrated ground effect upon use, which regenerates your maximum life and increases the damage enemies take from you. The bonus critical strike chance is also helpful in triggering the Elemental Overload Keystone. The Soul Ripper Flask can grant you Vol Souls which you can use for your powerful totem on demand. You would need the Trader Keystone to make it any reliable during boss fights. Aim for the lowest amount of charges possible as you have to use all of them at once. For your remaining magic flasks we recommend using Life Flask with Bleeding Removal, Quicksilver with Attack Speed bonus, and a Granite Flask with Armor Rating bonus. The Ancestor Warchief summons a melee totem that attacks nearby enemies. In this setup it deals almost no damage on its own. The Vol version has a huge bonus to maximum life and aggressively jumps to nearby enemies. All your damage comes from the Flamewood support. The combustion is very helpful in capping your chance to ignite. You can change it to Ignite Proliferation if you would have a 100% chance without it. Malevolence is your main offensive aura. It increases the damage you deal with your ignites. It also increases the duration of your effects, so the Vol totem has more time to inflict its powerful ignite. Purity of Fire provides you with a lot of fire resistance, but most importantly, it raises your maximum fire resistance, which will apply to all elemental types thanks to your ascendancy. Determination grants you a lot of flat armor rating and greatly improves it further. With a great amount of physical damage taken as elemental, you can consider swapping it with the Petrified Blood. The Clarity grants you plenty of mana regeneration. You don't have to link it with Enlighten, and you shouldn't level it too much if you lack unreserved mana. The remaining auras should be linked with the Enlightened support to greatly reduce their mana reservation. As mentioned before, Corrupted Implicit for 2 bonus levels to socketed auras would be very useful here. The Vitality aura grants you life regeneration, which is always useful to have, but you will have tons of life regeneration from other sources, so you can leave it at level 1 just to benefit from the Aura Mastery or Watcher's Eye modifier. With the Arrogance support gem, your auras will reserve life instead of mana. The Aura Mastery grants you +1 to maximum resistances if you have both mana and life reserved. The Arcanist brand creates a brand that automatically casts all linked spells in quick succession on the target it is attached to. The Punishment is a powerful curse that greatly improves your damage against enemies with less than 50% of their maximum life. You shouldn't use elemental curses, so it is the only option to improve your damage. When the Flame Surge hits an ignited enemy, it creates a burning ground that deals 25% of the ignite damage per second. Thanks to this setup, you will have all your utilities in one button. You should link it with the life tap, as your mana is rather limited. The Shield Charge causes you to charge in a specific direction. It is your main movement skill that doesn't have any cooldown. It scales with your attack and movement speed. To make this skill significantly quicker, you should link it with the faster attack support. It should also be used together with the life tap so you can freely spam it. The Searing Bond is one of the optional spells to use. It summons a totem that creates a fiery link between you and all other totems in radius. It deals fire damage over time and doesn't hit, so it cannot inflict ignite. Use it if you find your clear speed with Warchief totems too slow. It also has high mana costs, so again, you should put the life tap support here. It is recommended to use gloves that boost damage over time of socketed gems to have a pseudo 5 link setup. You could also use the Fire Trap instead of Searing Bond. It has higher damage and can inflict ignites, but you will have to use it more often. The mana cost of this trap is quite low, so you can use 3 proper damage supports instead. Both of those setups are just examples you can use to have better clear speed, so feel free to experiment. In the second act, you should kill all Bandit Lords to get an additional 2 passive tree skill points. For the major Pantheon power, we recommend the Soul of the Brine King, which will grant you immunity to freeze and stunlock avoidance. It also reduces the effect of chills on you. The Soul of Shikari is a very good pick for your minor Pantheon power. It grants you additional protection against poisons and chaos damage, which is your least resisted damage type. You most definitely shouldn't level up with the final setup. With just a few adjustments to the passive tree, you can level up with just any fire spell to your liking, even the Righteous Fire. We suggest swapping to the Flamewood setup once you begin struggling with the single target damage. It is an experimental build, it can achieve great damage and tankiness, but the Flamewood skill design leaves much to desire in terms of playability. To put it in perspective, you would need to spend 18 endurance charges on a level 29 discharge skill gem to achieve the same base damage as our level 25 Vol Ancestral Warchief. The regular totem has roughly 6 times less damage, which is still quite plenty, but definitely less impressive. The passive tree grants you a lot of fire damage, maximum life, mana reservation efficiency, and regeneration. It also picks up many totem-related passives that grant a lot of totem maximum life and placement speed, which is essential for a comfortable playstyle. To boost your clear speed a bit, you can also include explosions, for example with the Hind Core is notable, but you would need to remove the Ancestral Bond Keystone, which disables your direct damage. We hope you found this video interesting and informative. Please let us know if you want to see more experimental builds in the future via comment or by leaving a like and subscribe. Have a good day, and see you in the next video.